Welcome back to the Celtic Exchange Anti-Friday Night Special, as I'm joined here by Brido to cover a few different things. Of course, primarily we're here to cover Partick Thistle, who we take on Sunday in the League Cup quarter-final. But there's also some other stuff going on off the park. Celtic have released their financial results for the year-end, 30th of June 2025, and we'll cover that and a few other things in a bit of detail. But in the meantime, Brido, your initial thoughts ahead of this weekend's big game?
Great to be back, mate, on a nice quiet Friday night. I think just getting back into the swing of things. Obviously, the game against Kilmarnock, good to get the win after the international break, after a lot of let's call it sideshow, with all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So getting the win in that game, and then obviously a cup game, might be a chance to see some faces we've not seen as much. But yeah, I think it's just the more games we get, the better we might all feel, without, of course, forgetting that there is something that has to be done. But we've got to focus on the football at some point, and I think it's important these games come thick and fast.
Exactly that. So this is a pre-match show, at least on paper, but you can't ignore what's going on, behind the scenes at Celtic at this moment in time. We'll touch on a bit of it just now, because obviously there was breaking news tonight as Celtic released their financial figures, or the interim financial figures, to give us a real idea on what's going on. There's comments from Peter Lawwell, comments from Michael Nicholson within that. Before we get to that though, let's just kind of close the door on Kilmarnock last weekend there. Great to get the win. It always is. 96-minute winner is always there to be enjoyed. What was your take overall in terms of the performance and anybody that stood out for you in that one?
Yeah, I think we'd just come back for an international break. You want to get your players back fit, healthy and hungry to kind of kick on. I don't think the players can evade what was going on. Obviously, fans deciding to not be there for the first 12 minutes. It's a very glaring, obvious omission from what would be the norm. And I think the players dealt with it quite well. I mean, it wasn't a scintillating performance, but away to Kilmarnock it very rarely is. And I think it's just important to get the job done. Really enjoyed the fact that young Donovan played a vital part in the game to win it. He had a kind of iffy start, but yeah, I think just overall, mate, I think it's more of a kind of collective for me. Sirachi done well to set up a goal as well. So your two fullbacks obviously heavily involved in both our goals or the creation of the penalty. Yeah, I think one thing that stood out for me right enough is the fact that Engels didn't play at all. It was a bit, what's going on? Is he really kind of drifted out? I've got him in my team to play tomorrow. Obviously, we'll cover that later. Yeah, I think on the whole, mostly positive. Great to get the win, and keep in touch with Hearts, which seemed to be, as Tony Bloom said at the start of the season, be our biggest rivals at the minute. Yeah, it was great. It's just good to get the football and good to get the win.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get back to some of the team stuff just in a moment, because I think we've got a midfield problem, Brido, and I'm keen to spend a wee bit of time on that and look at some of the options here ahead of Thistle on Sunday. But as I said, we can't ignore what's going on in the wider picture with Celtic. The unrest continues. Fans delighted at the win against Kilmarnock, but just not happy so much in terms of how things are going on off the pitch. As it stands, Celtic have yet to respond to the open letter that was signed by something like 420 plus fan groups of varying shapes and sizes, whether that's supporters clubs, fan media, the affiliation of Celtic supporters clubs, etc, etc. No response from the club on that. There was a 12-minute protest on Sunday, and that itself was decided upon at a meeting of fans last Wednesday. So there's a lot of noise from the fan side of things, and keen to hear a response from the club. But out with the financials, which we're about to get to, and that wild statement, we've not heard any direct response from the club on that, and we'll hold out in the hope that we get something sometime soon. As mentioned at the top of the piece, Brido, I think I mentioned it was the interim results. My mistake. It's not that. It's the announcement of the financial figures for the year end, 30th of June 2025. I'll give you some of the headlines at this moment in time, and it's funny, you're about to hear some astronomical figures. Celtic have got themselves in such a position that we sneak these out on a Friday night when nobody's looking, or at least that's the intention. It should be something to be proud of in terms of how the club is being run, at least in a business sense. But as we know, in a football sense, we know we're not doing things right at this moment in time, which is why, we tend to see Financials going out on a Friday night and statements going out on a Saturday at 8:42 p.m. Anyway, let me give you these figures. Headline stuff, as I mentioned, revenue increased by 15.2% to 143 point. Should put my glasses on here. £143.6 million. So incredible money coming into the club. Of that, there was a profit before tax of 45 million, after tax of 33.9 million. Quick maths will tell you we've spent 12 million on tax there, and that becomes another stick to beat the club with, because if you're spending 12 million on tax, could you be spending more efficiently and paying a bit less tax and bringing more bodies in? In the year-end cash position, so I think a lot of us thought, well, last year it was 77 odd, this year it'll be 90 or 100 or whatever. But there's been lots of things going on, different spend on infrastructure and players in, players out. So the final figure is crazy how close it is. Last year's financial position was 77.2 million. This time around it's 77.3 million. So as close as it gets as such. Huge numbers there, Brido. Something, as I say, generally that you should be proud of as a club, but it's not quite the way it is at Celtic right now.
No, I mean, normally when it comes to these financials and stuff, we get we all become amateur accountants, don't we? And we start thinking we know what. I tend to, the arguments and debates happen around figures and things. I like to think that Celtic have people in the building that know about the tax implications, and I like to think they know about how, as a business, they make money and all that, and they do. But for me, so you're right. Based on that number, we've essentially stood still financially with the money in the bank, the cash in the bank. But if you think about it, stood still financially with an extra £1 million, but we showed real good progress within that period. So we developed as a team. We were competing at a good level. We done well against Bayern Munich. Now, yet we see the team as it is now. So when it comes to the pounds and the pence, yeah, it's important for me. But see, as a fan, and my dad says this all the time, we pay all the money for the games, but we don't see the money in the bank. We don't see it. So we could say there's 100 million. It could be 400 million for all I care. We don't see it as fans as much as maybe I think we should. So, yeah, for me, the stuff that's came out and what they've said and the financials and all that stuff that goes along with it, there needs to be wholesale change across the board. And these people who are giving statements and stuff are part of the problem. So they're never going to make a decision and kick themselves out, are they? And quite frankly, the amount of money they get paid to do the job that they do, I'd fully expect the club to be in a reasonably good position. So, yeah, like when it comes to the board and it comes to the money and it comes to the finances, for me anyway, all I want to do is see that reflected in what we see on a Saturday. Increased season ticket money, paying European packages. We want to see young players come through. They're touching on that. I'm sure we'll go through the statements a wee bit, but both Lull and Nicholson are really harping on about the academy and Barrafield and all this, and they're mentioning McGregor, Tierney and Forrest. McGregor and Forrest are over 30 years old. It's like, Tierney's been and gone. Like, so for me, across the board, we're meant to be the best in class. I think it was Tom McKay said that at one stage. Yeah, we're just not that. So they can say all they want about the figures and stuff. And you're right, putting them out on a Friday night, trying to hide it, because they're not confident in what they're putting out, and that tells a story as well. So for me, the money's one thing, but unless we start seeing it used properly and invested regularly and consistently, what difference does that make to me, you, and the thousands of fans that watch every week?
That's exactly it. So the financial figures are of interest, and of course you want to hear that your club's in a positive position. But actually the reality is, as you say, it doesn't matter if there's £1, £100 million, £500 million, doesn't really matter, as long as, of course, the club's in a stable financial position. But ultimately, as fans, it's not really a thing. You're in to see. Okay, everyone, we're going to leave it there for now on this one. But if you'd like to watch the full episode, you can do that right now by joining us over on Patreon at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. As a member, you'll get access to the rest of this episode, plus all of our additional shows, including pre- and post-match shows for every game, a range of extra episodes throughout the week, and loads more from the team here at Celtic Exchange. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up, and once you're in, you can continue watching the show on your device or directly on the brilliant Patreon app. So that's Patreon patreon.com/Celtic Exchange, or just click the link in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you over on Patreon shortly.